Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Craig and welcome back to the Grow Paradise Garden and Nursery. And in this video, I'm going to show you some fairly easy foliage plants that you can add to your garden to create that tropical or exotic vibe. Some of them are a bit harder to find, but they're definitely worth showing because they're really, really useful plants. And one of them is probably still the most desirable plant amongst tropical style gardeners because it's completely hardy and it's got a very, very special leaf shape. So let me show you some of these plants. Now, one of the first would be this, commonly called the palm grass, because it looks like giant palm seedling foliage. But this is Soteria palmifolia, and I've grown this outdoors through the summer, spring and autumn months in the UK, and it's been absolutely fine. It seems to thrive best in partial shade, and it loves rich soil. So I use this to underplant the larger shrubs in my tropical style garden, and it really creates that jungle vibe. Now, for me, it's grown up to 75 centimeters tall, and in autumn it sends up flower spikes with seeds that I saved that unfortunately didn't germinate. But this is a really, really nice foliage plant to add to your garden. It's got this corrugated leaf texture, which is what makes it look a lot like a palm seedling rather than a grass. And it's easy to propagate as well. Once you've got one, you can split this and divide it and start spreading it around your garden. I love plants that do that. That's obviously how the Grow Paradise Nursery started. If you love propagation, this is one that's worth giving a go. Now, another plant I would recommend that's actually one of those shrubs that I would underplant with that palm grass I just showed you is Tetrapanax papyrifera, or the rice paper plant. Now, this plant will produce some of the largest leaves in your garden. Each leaf can be almost a meter across. They have this really kind of soft matte look with a pale, it's called an indementum, like a furry cover underneath. It can be a bit of an irritant. If you get this kind of in the back of your throat, it can cause you to cough. But these are really, really good plants. Now, these can exceed 3 meters in height. They will grow up and form a tropical canopy of enormous leaves. But if you've got a small space or you're worried about them getting too tall, you can cut them back and they'll send out side shoots just to keep them to a good size in the space that you've got available. Now, this one I've kept in a pot for a couple of years because I'm undecided about where to put it in our garden, but they are so impressive and they give such a high impact that I just really want to add one. And the great thing about these is they are pretty solid. They're almost completely hardy across the UK. In severe winters, the thick woody stem that will grow might get frosted back, but you will get small Tetrapanax plants regrowing from the soil in spring because it's root hardy. But it will take -5 without getting frosted off, and you'll get lots of new growth, and it will get taller and taller each year until you're having a nice cold drink under a canopy of huge leaves like this. There are different forms available. There's one called Tetrapanax rex, which has kind of much more structural foliage. There are a couple of others as well. A lot of them are very, very difficult to tell apart, but even the standard form, just Tetrapanax papyrifera, is a really, really nice plant, just for high impact and ease of growth. Okay, next up is a tree that I've had growing in the Grow Paradise garden for a couple of years, and I think it's only featured on the Grow Paradise YouTube channel once or twice, but it's getting to a good size now. It's grown in a pot. Now, this was given to me by a friend of mine who grew it from a cutting. This is Podocarpus henkelii, and it's got this really nice weeping evergreen foliage, and the plant that it was taken from as a cutting was enormous. Now, these are evergreen and they're pretty hardy throughout the UK, and I think this narrow foliage makes a really nice evergreen backdrop for that larger leaved round foliage that so much of us, or so many of us, grow in a tropical style garden. Now, this will grow to many, many meters high, but I've pinched out the top a couple of times to encourage these side shoots, and now it's starting to naturally kind of create a really, really nice form. Now, as I say, this one's still in a pot. I'm undecided as to where I'm going to put this one in the Grow Paradise garden. You're spotting a theme here. I like to move things around. I like to keep things in pots for as long as possible because I can sit them in positions just to make sure that I'm getting kind of good pairings, plants that are happy in the right spots before I put them into the ground. And it's probably actually something that I'd recommend you do before you take it out of a pot and stress a plant out and put it in the ground, only to dig it up later on. Leave it in the pot for a little while, give it a feed, give it a water, keep it happy. Stick it where you think you might want it to go, where you think it might be happy, and see how it does. Some plants get too much sun and you're going to have to move them. If it's still in the pot, that's going to be a lot less stressful for the plant. And sometimes plants can cost us a small fortune. So we want to treat them as well as possible. Yeah, I think I'm going to put this one on our new patio project that is up and coming, because this is just going to look so good against that big wide foliage of a summer tropical garden. Podocarpus henkelii. Now, a plant that's related to that tetrapanax rice paper plant, it's in the same family, is Brasseopsis mitis, and this vicious stem belongs to it. Now, the foliage has a really nice cut leaf shape, and this is the plant that I think is one of the most desirable plants amongst tropical style gardeners in the UK, at least. I think it's more readily available in the rest of Europe, but here they're hard to come by. Now, this is one I've got growing in a pot, and I've got another planted out into the garden, and it's been outside for a couple of years in the ground, and it's doing really, really well. I'll show you the plant that's in the ground. It's pushing out healthy leaves, whereas this one's looking a bit stunted because it needs planting out. And this is probably going to form part of our patio project, because if I can have this foliage somewhere where I can see it from the house all summer long, that's going to be fantastic. Now, as I say, this is hardy, but just like the tetrapanax, the soft, fresh growth might get frosted back in a really severe winter, but the woody material is much more cold resilient, and it should get taller and taller each year. Now, this leaf form is actually the juvenile foliage. So as the plant matures, it's going to become less and less dissected. But I've not seen a mature Brasseopsis mitis, so I have no idea what it would look like kind of when it reaches its mature height. Perhaps we'll see in a number of years, as all of us who are growing them in the UK get mature plants, but I really, really like that leaf. You just can't beat it. I can see why it's one of the most desirable plants to add to a tropical style garden. If you're growing your tropical style garden in shade, you might think, oh, there's nothing I can grow, nothing's going to look that good in a shady position. But you need to consider hardy begonias. This one is Begonia pedatofida, with these bright red leaf stems and these palmately divided leaves. This is easily one of my favourite plants in the garden. Completely hardy, it will die back to ground level. I mulch the roots to protect them from any penetrating cold in winter, and it regrows bigger and better every year. Now, this one's in a pot because this is the plant that I propagate from for the Grow Paradise nursery. But I absolutely love it. And there are a number of hardy begonias that you can grow that will provide tropical looking foliage, jungle foliage, from spring all the way through to the first frosts. This is just one. But I mean, look at it. And this one's grown into a monster, and that's restricted inside of a pot as well. Imagine the size this would get to when it's planted out. It's definitely one that's worth giving a go. If you do have a nice sunny spot and you're looking for something a bit different that is showing good hardiness, try Semponiums. These are a cross between hardy Sempervivums, or the hen and chicks that we see growing in rockeries all over the place, and the Canary Island house leek or giant house leek, those huge Aeoniums. This is an intrageneric hybrid, so they're really, really vigorous. These are relatively newly cultivated in the past 2 or 3 years. And there's a number of different cultivars available now. This one, with a really nice geometric form, is Diamond, and this is Sienna, named after one of the breeder's daughters. There are a few others out there, like Destiny, which is really good. It won Chelsea Plant of the Year. It stays dark purple all winter long. I'm growing these in pots because we're on a clay garden here, so the drainage won't be good enough through winter, but these are going to stay out this winter. I've managed to get 2 or 3, so I've got backup plants, but I'm going to experiment. I'm going to test the claim, and I'm going to see if these will take -4 degrees Celsius, which is what they're claimed to be able to take, but they will need to be kept a bit drier. So that's why I've got the drainage of the pot. But try adding Semponiums, these new intergeneric hybrids. If you like that geometric form, or you perhaps like that arid garden style, I'd definitely recommend these. They're one of the fastest growing plants in the garden at the moment, which you wouldn't expect from something like this. Now, a plant that would look great alongside those Semponiums is this. This is one of the hardiest yuccas that we can grow. It's Yucca rostrata from the Chihuahuan deserts of Mexico. Now, this will, in time, grow up on a thick, woody stem. It looks really architectural, and this glaucous silvery blue foliage will remain in a perfect sphere, and mature plants will produce a spike of creamy white flowers that pollinators love, but these are not the fastest growing plants on the planet. You will be waiting years and years for yours to reach maturity, but at this height, they make a really architectural plant with this tactile foliage that is spiky if you catch it at the wrong angle. but they're hardy, so they will take snow and ice. The only thing is wet. If they are too wet, they can rot off in the middle here. I know George from George's Jungle Garden lost one this winter, but he also kept a few that survived perfectly well up north. So it shows their hardiness, and that's exactly what I was saying about the same plant in a different spot in your garden might struggle. So sit them in the pots, test them out, see if they're happy, and then plant them. But I absolutely love these, and I'm usually more of a fan of kind of big leafy plants, not the spikies. But this one, I've kept one of, and I've put it in a square terracotta pot. I'm going to do a planting up video soon. You're going to see me create kind of an arid display pot in that container. Now, if you want to test what you can get away with hardiness, something that shows quite good signs of cold tolerance are these Bilbergia bromeliads. This one is Nutans, but there is a windy eye hybrid as well. They're very, very similar. One's just got a narrower leaf. They've got these thick green rosettes that catch rainwater in the middle. There you go, quite a lot of rainwater. That's how they'll grow. And you can mount these to trees in your garden, and they send out these flower spikes. This one has a bright pink kind of sheath to it, and then multicolored flowers will droop out from under here when it's in full bloom. I love growing bromeliads in my garden because I think it makes it look really, really tropical. When you've got these growing on the posts of perhaps your lean-to or your sheds, or tied into the branches of thick trees if you've got the space for mature trees. And to have some that show really good signs of cold tolerance, not completely hardy, but they will take a light frost, especially if they're under a tree canopy, so it's a nice warmer microclimate, then imagine having something like that growing off the trees in your garden. Yeah, these are Bilbergia Nutans, or the windy eye hybrid. And the great thing about these is they multiply as well, so you get all the pups coming off the side of the pot. I was going to divide these, but when I saw the flower spike, I think I'm going to keep this one and use it as part of the display garden in Grow Paradise. And finally is this one, which is a very young form of the plant that I'm talking about. This is Geranium madarensi. Now, this is a plant that's actually really easy to grow from seed, so if you can get hold of seed, definitely have a go at growing some of these. It's the Madeiran canary, no, what's it called? The Madeiran cranesbill or something like that. But it grows into a giant. For me, in the southwest of the UK, in zone 9B, it remains evergreen. And this dissected foliage will get enormous, maybe 60 centimeters across. It looks really, really jungly, and it has these thick red stems that hold the leaves out on an orb of foliage. And now in its second or third year, it produces a crown of magenta, typical geranium-looking flowers, but they are produced by, I'm going to say, 600-700 flowers on one plant all at once. It really is a sight to behold, and we've had one flower in the garden before, and I saved loads of seed, and all the ones we've been growing for the Grow Paradise nursery have been kind of grandchildren of that first plant we had in flower. I think they're really, really good, not just for the flowers, but for this foliage as well. Like I say, this is just a baby at the moment. It is going to get enormous. Hopefully that video has inspired you to search some of those plants out so that you too can add them to your patch of paradise. I tried to add some that are a bit different that I don't talk about all the time on the Grow Paradise YouTube channel. I'm going to try and bring some new things into the garden this year, experiment with some new plants, but that list is mostly hardy plants that are easy to grow in a tropical style garden, and there's a few that are half hardy or borderline tender that you can experiment with depending where your garden is or what the microclimate is like where you're growing your garden. Now, if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel. Feel free to check out our plant and seed shop if you're in the UK, and sign up to our growers support forum over at growparadise.social, where we've got a growing community of people that love this tropical style of plants and gardens, and we're all helping each other out. There's people from Hawaii, from the US, from the Netherlands, Australia, and little old me in my garden here in the UK. So go check that out. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.